Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Unscripted. Uh, to be honest, I gotta be clear with you all. I'm very juiced today. I'm very excited. We got one of the best producers of all time. One of my top five. Should be one of your top five. Just such a legend. And if you're not familiar, this producer's made beats for everybody. Some of the most iconic beats of the last 20, 30 years. Everyone from 50 Cent, Snoop Dogg. Anderson Paak, Quali, Mos Def. The list goes on. If you check his discography, it's insane. In fact, if you type in exclamation point follow in the chat, you'll be able to pull up the Instagram and discography and a playlist of all Hi-Tek's productions. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome to the show the one and only Hi-Tek. Yo, it's an honor to have you here, Hi-Tek. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, man. It's an honor as well.
So let's get right into it. Man, you've produced honestly some of the most incredible and iconic beats of all time, and I want to get right into them. But recently, you just put out a series of albums based off productions that you made in the '90s using different hardware equipment like the MPC 60. Can you tell me
Yeah,
about this series and what you'd like to do with it?
yeah. Basically, it's like just the series is like cleaning off my hard drive, really, man. And I wouldn't even say hard drive. It's like beats I've had, that mean so much to me that really, told my story coming up and shows my growth over the years. And I just wanted to share it with my fans and at the same time just like start compiling stuff, with getting it out, to be honest, to make extra money, to put something like to just have a lot of masters out there, to share my story, to show my growth. It just the beats mean a lot to me because those are the beats that you will hear like all my influences, until I really fully developed into the guy you hear today.
Yeah, it's really cool too. Actually, some I noticed one of the beats was on a Mood album too. The Mood album the Doom record. I think is he Hi-Tek? Is that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. What? Yeah, man. It's like, and it's funny because that beat, I think yeah, he is DJ High Tech. That interlude that was on the Mood album. Um, I don't know, man. I'm a true believer in in God, man, and it's like it wasn't no coincidence that interlude was on that album, to display my talents because that's all I was trying to do is just display my skill. And actually wasn't in the group, so
Oh shit.
uh, yeah, I wasn't in mood. I wasn't in the group mood. I was just a friend of theirs that had beats, and I just contributed to the album.
Yeah, because the reason I know Mood is because of the beats that you made, specifically Karma. That's what's such an incredible beat. The way you flip that sample, and I just
So
assumed that you were part of that group, but definitely you put me on to that group because of your productions.
yeah, that's family. That is family. We Cincinnati is small. So the hip hop community is very small in Cincinnati. So that was one of the guys I came. Those are some of the guys I came up with in Cincinnati, and also ultimately I helped them get their record deal because of there's a song called "Hustle on the Side" that I produced the beat for, and that beat kind of got some attention and it helped them get that record deal. And I really did, to be honest. Like I wasn't in the group, so I mean it's all respect, but I wanted to be in the group when they got the record deal. I was like, oh man, I want to sign a contract too, but I'm glad I didn't. That contract was like one of the worst. That they'll tell you that themselves.
Shit. Yeah, I guess that's industry rule number 4080, number one right
Oh
there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes sir, shady.
But what's really cool, just back to the beat compilations you've been putting out, and
Yeah,
specifically, is he DJ Hi-Tek? What's really cool about that is it's also an ode to the fact that you're also a really great DJ, and I see, produced by Hamza, put in the chat that you also put on the scratch intro and high technology. You've always represented for the DJ side of that as well, and it was really cool to hear that as a, as a cut on that album and on your album as well. Can you just tell me a little bit about your DJ history? Like, did you get into DJing first, or was it production, or how did those two work together for you?
All right, let me start from the very beginning. I'm gonna try to make it short though. Like
Okay.
when I first heard, when breakdancing was a thing, and I first heard Run DMC and Jam Master Jay, and he was doing that scratch, that run, run. I mean, the time I heard that is when I wanted to be a DJ. So me and my homie, his mom's had a phonograph, you know, turntable, what you would call it back in the day. We would try to do that same scratch. So I was like in amazement about how scratching sound and how it worked from the age of 7, you know, 6, 7 years old. You know what I mean? 8 years old, and from there, you know, I like the first thing I did was ask my mother, for a pair of turntables for Christmas. You know what I'm saying? And got my hands on that at the age of, like, I think it was like 12 when I got my first set of turntables. So DJing has always been a part of hip hop, and I've always been a part of hip hop. And that was just a hobby. That was a thing, and that's where it came from. It was just the amazement of how scratching sound, and I wanted to do that myself. So when I first got my turntable, that was the first thing I would do. I remember my first mix. It was Kraftwerk. I forget the name of the record. The Boing Bing Boom Chop. Uh, and what was it? Dionne Warwick, Walk On By.
Ooh.
Dope mix. It was dope. So that was like my first mix. I had a pair of I forget what brand that was. Gemini,
Yeah.
pair of Gemini turntables. You know what I'm saying? And from there, I learned. Digging in the crates. Um, I would find samples because basically I didn't have a bunch of records at the age of 12. So my grandmother had a like like a stash of about 30 records, that I would just go through, and I found the craft work. I found a lot of records, man, that 24 karat black,
Ooh, yeah.
weather report,
Ooh, yeah.
so the Sweet Nighter record, the Weather Report, the Sweet Nighter album. Like, if you know anything about that Weather Report Sweet Nighter album, and I found that at the age of 12, and then you would hear, if you know about Organized Noise, you would hear that Organized Noise sample on there, and I actually had found that before I heard Organized Noise. So I was putting two and two together. So DJing was like secondhand, before I even tried to make a beat. I was DJing, and I think the producing part of it really took over after a while, though.
Yeah, and what's really cool too is I really loved how you on this new compilation of beat tapes is like you really showcase like the sound of the instrument of the the hardware that you're using. You're using the MPC 60, I know you use the MPC 3000 and so forth. And it was really cool hearing how the sound of those records similar to what you're saying. At that time as you're growing as a producer, it was really awesome that you share that with us all to be able to listen to it
Man,
and hear
so
it.
I mean, ultimately, those were the actual beats that I was making back then. So I was able to pull them off my DAT tape. I had to find a DAT machine, that worked. I
Wow.
bought I went through like three of them. I bought three off of eBay. Like two of them didn't work, and the one that I was actually, it's working sometimes, sometimes it's not. So I was lucky to get them off there when I could. So I was able to transfer them to digital, and put a better little mix on them. As far as I mean, I still got the disc, the floppy disk. I do have them, but not that don't mean they're gonna work. But anyway, like, you know, I was able to get what you're hearing on those. Actually, one dropped today. Check that out if you get a chance. Everybody that's listening, you know what I'm saying. It's called Beatbox Studio 2, which the one that came out last month is Beatbox Studios 1. So yeah, the beats that you hear on those is just beats that I was making at the age of 15, 16, 17. You know what I'm saying, and just trying to learn my craft.
Wow. Well, hey, I want to give a quick shout out to the Cook and Soul who's in here right now. Shout out Cook and Soul.
What up, Cooking Soul?
He just said, "Great to see you rocking with Serato Studio." Yeah, we saw you. We saw you on Instagram using Serato Studio the other day as well. I was really excited. Obviously, everyone was really
Yeah.
stoked to see you using that.
Oh yeah, yeah. The Serato studio is crazy, man. It's crazy because like it's like everything I would have wanted in a sequencer. It's so dope, man. Like I'm still trying to learn it, um, and getting around, but like just punching around, it's just so dope, man. That I'm really trying to get into it.
Oh man, we gotta do some more with you. The Hi-Tek definitely very very stoked to hear that. And yeah, shout out Cook and Soul. He said Rider Music's one of his favorite beats of yours. That's a crazy beat. Actually, we got to get into some of your classic beats if you don't mind. And
Oh
first
yeah, let's
off,
do it.
first off, I gotta say, man, the way that you use bass in your beats is definitely one of my favorite people. The way that you use bass, and one bass line in particular is just insane to me. I gotta know how you did it. It's the beat you made for Anderson Paak, "Come Down." Um, that bass, dude, is out of control. Like, how did you do that?
Well, I mean, my bass is like I was told that like I didn't really catch it because I do it so much and it was part of my thing is like playing lead bass. I would call it. I'll play the bass as if it's not a bass. I'll just do whatever whatever I feel the way it sounds or whatever. But you know the Anderson Pack bass line. Uh, actually was played. That was a live bass by a guy named Brian Cockerham, and it's a sample in there where if you really listen to the intro, you can hear that bass line in the background, and it was inspired by what I thought I was hearing in that sample, and I asked him, to play it up, and uh, I held on to that bass line like the Anderson Pack joint. uh, I probably did. I had probably by the time you heard the Anderson Pack joint, I probably had made that like 9 years before.
Wow.
So I was like sitting on it. You know what I mean? But the bass is definitely my instrument. If you could like take me, in a time machine to the jazz days, I would definitely be a bass player.
Absolutely, dude. Yeah, like honestly, whenever I listen to your beats, you know, the thing is, for me as a bass player, I listen to that a lot, and I think that the way you use bass is very unique,
Hmm.
and it always like really supports the beat. And a lot of people maybe be known for their sample chops or their drums or whatever, but one of these things about the way you use your drums and the bass that work together is just very very funky and very very natural. It's fantastic. So
Thank you, man.
major props on that. Now, you're talking about samples. We're not going to talk about clearing samples, but your dad is a guitar player, right?
No, my uncle.
Uncle.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, my uncle. Yeah, my dad's brother.
Okay. So is that
Yeah.
Willie Cottrell?
Now Willie Cottrell is my father.
Okay.
And Larry Cottrell is my uncle. That's who, them days when I first got my turntables, like that first set of turntables, like he was the one that would like, pull me to the side and like, you know, teach me how to try to play some of the songs that I was playing on the turntables. And I had that set up, like I said, at my grandmother's house, and he was there at the time, and like he would always teach me how to hear, you know, the music and teaching me how to, you know, be in key and all of that. So he's a self-taught musician, but definitely my uncle. Props and rest in peace to my uncle Larry, man. He was the truth.
Wow. Yeah, because that's one of the
Yeah.
cool things in like your rhythm roulette and a lot of the videos I've seen of you making beats on YouTube. You're always adding a lot of elements on top of the samples and the drums, and it's always really in key and very musically tasteful. So shout
Hmm.
out to Larry, Uncle Larry. That's
Yeah,
incredible.
definitely, man. Uncle's the truth, man. Him and my pops, they had a group back in the day called the Italians, and it's funny, man. It's a long story, but you know, he he kept a guitar in the house. He stayed with my grandmother, and we would go over there. When I was there, and when I had my turntable, like I said, you know, him and my pops had a group called the Ditalians, and Ditalians was the original group to the group who went on to be 24 Karat Black.
Wow.
Yeah, so the original members are still there, minus my pops and uncle, but the drummer they called him Fat Dog. So I would hear that name around the house all the time. But that was like one of their best friends, and they were like the founding members of the Italians, which, like I said, went on to be the 24 Karat Black. But the crazy part about it, when I was like mixing and DJing at my grandmother's house, I would play the 24 Karat Black record all the time, but nobody in the house ever told me that that was like
That's
the old
crazy.
group.
That's wild, man.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, yeah, it's like that was weird.
That's what a crazy story, though. Hey, if we're gonna get back to musicians and bass players in particular, I do really want to talk about this record, Instant Vintage, which you
Oh
have
yeah, shout
a
out
couple.
Raphael Sadiq, man,
Yeah,
dope.
this is one of my favorite records, and you got two interlude beats on there, and you also produced one of the tracks with him on that as well, right?
I did a remix to the song called "Be Here" with him and D'Angelo.
Right. Can you tell me about working with Raphael Sadiq, like how you guys linked up?
Well, during that time I was hot. I was hot. 90, 100 degrees hot. And everybody was reaching out, man. At that time, and it was like um, he was a guy that reached out, and plus I had it was just a musical connection. Raphael Sadiq is a deep brother. Like as you know, he's a bass player himself, and we just connected musically, and uh, basically he had reached out and asked me did I have anything, and I had sent him a bunch of joints. He was like, "Oh," I remember him telling me he was like ready to revamp the whole album because of the joints that I had sent him. Because it was
Wow.
like, I think the joints that I had sent him, they were so dope, you know, that he wanted to. It was just his own thing. So if he would have just like put it on the album that he was working on, it probably would have stood out a little differently than what else was on that album, which is a classic album, man. The album is so dope. Um, but yeah, he had reached out and I sent him a few joints, and he decided to include me on the and use them as an interlude, which is still was dope to me to just to be working with Raphael. That was just definitely a honor to be able to do that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man, that is such a great record, and it's so cool how he's like, "Yo, Tech, one of my favorite producers." He's like, just giving you the biggest shout out on there and
Oh
everything
yeah,
too.
yeah. Raphael's the truth, man. He's one of my favorite producers as well.
For real, for real. Hey, you got a couple questions in here that I think is worth just quickly touching in on. And somebody had a question about Tony Guitar Watson. One second,
Yeah.
where is it? So, what's the story behind Tony Guitar Watson? Is that linked to family playing guitar?
Yeah, so basically, like the guitar that you hear on the beat, I played it with my guitar. So I played it into the MPC and used some chops and chopped each note. So this was like the skill of my uncle that he gave me, like just to be able to hear. He basically told me what you hear is what you play. And if you hear it in your head, just find a way to get it out. And that always stuck with me, just to stay in key. And basically, I played the notes, each note, what you hear, the dun, 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 dun. So I played like each note, but I programmed it on the MP, each note on the MPC. So, but the way you hear it is it still sounds live. So that was the whole thing is to still make it sound like a live guitar. And if you know anything about funk and jazz, you know a guy by the name of Johnny Guitar Watson. And
Absolutely.
so I took that and turned it into, which is my real name, Tony. I turned it into Tony Guitar Watson.
That's so fire, man. Man, we're getting some gems here, and I want to give a quick shout out to a couple people in the chat. We got a legend, DiBiase, in the chat. We got Hood Joplin, Jairus, DJ Quick.
DiBiase, Hood Joplin. What's up, y'all? Thanks for checking in. You know what I'm saying?
We got Eloquent, we got Trucks Beats, we got a lot of really great producers here too. Everyone's bigging you up. Everyone knows, as they say, Hi-Tek is your favorite producer's favorite producer. So
Dope.
let's rewind it a little bit. Just after Mood, this is one of the first records I got that I knew that you
Mm,
produced. The first Reflection Eternal 2000 Seasons 12-inch.
yeah.
Man, so I've got to know, and I'm sure you've mentioned before, but if you don't mind, just talk me a little bit about being in Cincinnati and then connecting with Kweli on that record.
Before that record, I would say we have a whole other album.
Wow.
Um, like I have a pre Reflection Eternal album that I'm actually mixing right now.
Oh shit. Yes.
So I think he'll be surprised to hear that as well. But as I was searching through these DATs, to bring the instrumental series, I started finding all these old Reflection Eternal songs. But that was like a beat that sample was given to me by one of his best friends, and while I was in Brooklyn visiting. And me and Qual, he would basically go to work and leave me at the house. And then, once he get off work, we would just hit the streets and hit the studio or any studio that we can get into. And that record was given to me by his friend. He was like, we was working, had songs and whatever the case may be. We was doing our thing, at the Mood Studio, my home studio. It was a time where I would bring the drum machine on the Greyhound all the way up to Brooklyn. You know
Wow.
what I'm saying? And we hook it up in his basement. And basically, his friend kept telling me about this sample we had. And I'm like, man, I got to. He lived up the block. So I finally got around to, after a couple of visits, he kept telling me, you got to hear this record. You got to hear this 45 or whatever. And I finally went over to the crib, to his crib, and he played it for me, and I was like, damn, that shit is crazy. I had never heard it before. It was a 45 with the beats and the drums on it was crazy. Rest in peace to you, Roy. It's a song called Tom Drunk, that it was sampled from, and actually it's funny because I always thought the artist was named Tom Drunk because it's the font is bigger. The Tom Drunk is bigger than the actual name of the actual artist on the record. But anyway, long story short, he had kept telling me I need to hear this 45, and when I heard it, man, I was amazed. So I couldn't wait to get back to the crib to chop it up, man. I got home, chopped it up. Mind you, I did, this was pre-internet days, and I had to wait till the next time I went to New York or he came back to Cincinnati. I don't know if I mailed him I doubt if I mailed it to him. I think I brought it back to New York on the next trip. And then you know, I left and I think he told me he was getting in the studio with Mos Def and Mr. Man. And I was like, wow, okay. And so I came back up, and this is when I had a little MPV. Sometimes before the MPV, I was before I was driving the MPV, I would catch the Greyhound. So I don't know if it was the Greyhound trip or the MPV. I would drive to New York by myself. You know what I'm saying? If anybody didn't want to roll with me, I'd just drive 10 hours from Cincinnati to Brooklyn, and I drove to Platinum Island Studios where we recorded that at, and man, Mos Def was in the studio. Well, Yasin, he was in the studio, and Mr. Man was in the studio. And I remember hearing them rap to that beat for the first time, and that was one of the first times I knew it was like I was taking it to the next level because, I remember it inspired me to know that a beat is never done until the other elements are added to it, because it actually inspires you to want to do different things even when you doubt in yourself. You got people like Yasin and Kwa, who can actually make songs who bring it out of you, and makes the beats you know better than what you might have thought they were. So I just remember that day we was at Platinum Studios in New York, and that was that beat. Uh, yeah, I thought I knew it was crazy, but once we got to like tracking it onto 2 inch and all of that, 2 inch reel, it was just crazy.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's something else. Shout out to Bush Babies, Mr. Man, and Most Def
yeah.
Quali. I
Shout
mean,
out to Mr. Man.
what a great record, man. Yeah, that was my first one of my first introductions to you. And of course, we now that you're talking about Most Def, we have to talk about this mighty, legendary beat, Respiration. This
Yeah,
is
man. Ooh.
I think this is anyone who grew up in this time. This is like one of their favorite beats of all time, and that beat just wow, what a moment! It captures that time so well. Um, Tell me about making that beat and how you got it to them. Like, how did that? I'd love to hear anything you can tell us about that.
Yeah, this the sample I used was Don Randy. I forget the name of the song, but I just remember trying to program that beat and like chop that sample up. And the drums in the back of the sample, I was trying to emulate those, and I created my own drums. Uh, and not to toot my own horn, but I always made it a thing to always make my own drums, kicks and snares. I never really was a breakbeat person. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like
wow.
I could never take what was already there. I was always try to, create what my own original drums. So that was like one of those beats. If you listen to the original sample, you'll hear the drums in the back. So I created my own and programmed it. Now the original version of the beat is different than what you hear on the
Oh, for
record.
real?
Yeah.
We
So
got to
it's
hear
a
that one of
little
these days, Tech. We got to
I
hear
know
that.
I almost forgot what it sounded like, but I remember not really liking it.
Oh wow.
So most Yasin loved the beat. And we were in Chicago working on the Black Star. Prior to that, I was with Quali. We had ran up on Common like after a show, and asked Common could he be a part of the Black Star and this Black Star record in this song. I don't think we had a title for it yet, but we didn't even have we wasn't even sold on the beat yet. That's what it was. But I remember
Wow.
them really liking the beat. So when we flew out to Chicago, uh, I was in the studio and my thing was I always looked at it like, this is my only chance to to perform and make my impact. So I was like, man, this is I don't know. Y'all sure y'all don't want to use another beat, man? And it's like, no, Tone, no, you gotta do this. It's like I was like, man, well let me try to, do some different drums to it. And they was like, all right, cool. So everybody like left the room or whatever. And I just went to work, and that so like it's somewhat of the original drums, but I freaked it and made it better of what I thought was better. Because you might hear the original and say, nah, that was better. But you know, that's when you hear the break, the boom, 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 cat, cat, cat. You hear that, all of that. Like I was able to produce all of that and give it a more broader production. And they heard that and was like, yeah, that's it. So I kind of forced myself to like that beat. And
Wow.
yeah, so yeah, that's like, and I remember that was really a monumental time in my life where I was, able to. I was left alone in the studio with Common, and I was nervous, but Common made me feel comfortable because he was like, "Man, you got to produce." He was like, "Don't get nervous." He was like, "Man, just tell me, I'm all ears, basically, and don't be scared to tell me what you want me to do." And what you hearing. So I was like, from there it was on. So I was there when he dropped, but he put the vocals there, and because I think y'all seen it, and Qua had to leave early, so I was left in the studio at Streeter studio called Streeterville in Chicago, and
Wow.
that day, so when I stayed, I forgot. I think I was at some hotel. I forgot where I stayed at that day, but I remember him picking me up the next day, and we rode around. I remember we went to go see his daughter, and he took me to the Greyhound
Oh
dropped
wow.
me off at the Greyhound station, and I went to the crib. But I remember on my way to the crib listening to the joint in my Walkman. You know what I mean? Shout out to everybody that know what a Walkman is.
No doubt. Those are great relics, those things.
Yeah,
Yo, the way you got those drums singing with that sample though is really something. And I was just listening to it today and I was like, wow, you like it's right in the
definitely.
pocket. It's
Yeah,
just
that's
like
definitely
perfect.
like that's my version of what you hear in the sample. So I was trying to find the drums that matched the sample, basically.
Yeah, well, it nailed it. Now, since we're
Thank
talking
you.
about Common, there is one joint that I have to ask you about, and I'm sure a bunch of people are going to know in the chat about this joint. So this joint has never come out, and I'm curious to know why. But let's just run it real quick for everyone. It's Common Techzilla.
Sir.
On the streets of the side, I look a man in his face eye to eye and wonder why. I don't wanna die. I hope you don't wanna die. So why bring it my way?
Common sense in a ghetto in Chicago.
Yo, Taxilla, you know I ain't the type to play killer, but this day still arrives in my mind like a flight. But damn, Thursday night, and plans to be out. So the night served daylight, but it ain't happen. Rapping to myself, cause it wasn't no one to rap to. This feeling came to me like somebody looking at you. It was these cats who me and my crew boxed against. Got a spot in the Glock, now the nigga got some confidence. Cause I'm common sense and I rap consciousness. He was prompted to diss mad, cause my guy used to knock his bitch. I could sense he was trying to bring it, but I wasn't ready to receive it. In fact, I make him leave it before he could achieve it. As we rolled through the streets of Cottage Grove and reached the stoplight, behind me, he flashlights bright, sorta cop like. I'm thinking Tupac like as he got out the car. I was saw only to fight in defense, knowing the will of Allah. It ain't no talking when it's time is far. So before he popped some shit, I did the opposite and stole him. Back his lady tried to hold him like Big Pun, I stole him and told him I ain't a shooter, I just punch a lot. Between blows, this big tried to up his block. His brother watched spook like Big Daddy on Teenage Love. He got bukes in my tape by C-Nigga Dub, got his dome in the hub.
Now we can't really play the whole thing for you all, but we gotta know. You gotta let us know, Tech.
You
What's
might as well. It wasn't that much more. You might as well have played the rest, man.
my bad, my bad. But this is like a classic. This is like if you know, you know about this track, and it's such a shame it never came out. Is there any story behind why it didn't come out?
Yeah, it's a little weird story, man. It wasn't nothing. Well, I wouldn't say too bad, but at the time I was working. Actually, you know what? That joint was never really intended for anything. It was every year common. Let me take you back. He had a cousin that lived in Cincinnati. Rest in peace, Ajale. He passed, and but he would come visit Ajale every year during the summer. And Common had been coming to Cincinnati every year, like since he was a kid. And if you asked him, he said he wrote his first rap in Cincinnati,
Oh wow.
and he used to kick it with a crew called the Bond Hill Crew. Uh, Shout out to Newville and Nate and all of them. Uh, I think they inspired Common to write his first rap here in Cincinnati. And so he would come see Ajale, um, and, and he would come visit me in the studio any chance he got. So we was just working in general like that. I think that was a verse he had, and I was working on a beat in the studio. We were just trying to come up with some stuff, and that was the verse he had laid. And actually, that's where Techzilla come from. Actually, Common named me Techzilla.
Hey.
I had never had that name prior to then. So shout out to Common forever, man. That's like my brother in this for sure. Uh, you know, what happened was I had the joint and I asked him could I use it for my the initial high technology, and everything was all good. So it was a guy, I ain't gonna even say his name. He used to be in the circle, and I think he told me that Common said it was cool if he made it a white label, and I fell for it without asking Common about it. I didn't get the confirmation, and basically, dude put it out uh, without Common's consent, and That's how you hear it today. It was just put out on a white label, and then Common hit me up like, "Yo, why you put that joint?" I was like, "Dad, he dude said he was running with them, so I thought it was cool. Come to find out, it wasn't cool. So anyway, we still good, but that's kind of how you hear it today. I would have still ended up putting it out eventually, but it got white labeled by a swindler.
Damn. Well, I mean, I guess we got it one way or another, but it would be amazing to have it,
Yeah,
on streaming and all that,
yeah, man.
Damn, that's too bad. We're not very happy with that guy, whoever he is, but we're
Yeah,
kind of
yeah, yeah.
it's all
He
right, I
blew it.
guess.
He messed it up. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Damn. Yeah, because I mean that's one hell of a beat, and again, I think it's a great example of showing how you're using the bass, the way that you use the bass. Now I remember when the first time I heard that track, I was like, "Yo, Tech's on another level," and it was just, oh yeah, incredible. But leading up to your album, High Technology, of course, has one of the most classic hip hop tracks of all time, Round and Round, with
Mm.
featuring Janelle. Man, I gotta hear about that story too, because the guitar on that is fantastic, as the drums and the bass. And Janelle, who's also from Cincinnati, is that right?
Yeah, yeah, yep. Cincinnati.
And you were producing them to kind of I mean, you introduced Janelle to the world, and I'm curious to know, like, you've talked about working with artists and trying to develop them as a very traditional way of being a producer. Is that what you were hoping to do with Janelle, and what you did, I
Yeah,
guess?
yeah. Definitely, man. Like Jonelle was I mean, it was like a work in progress, with her. She was so fresh and green, that I don't think she was ready for the impact that record had made at the time. It was like it went number one, and it was like it actually. I mean, it just changed my life, to be honest, at the time. And I mean, my what I set out to do was, what I'm always setting out to do is to make a dope record, and that was a time where I felt like hip hop R&B was missing, like that real gritty, like first Mary J. Blige album R&B was missing at the time. So that's where that come from, and I tended to bring that back, with that song. So I had the beat, and I had known Jonelle from a couple years back, and I thought she wasn't really ready in the studio like that, so I really didn't work with her. And I had seen her in the club uh, after I had made the beat. Literally, like this is how it happened. I made the beat. I was kind of burnt out. Went to the club, and I seen her, and I was like, "Oh, what up?" And she was like, "Yo, I've been working," and I was kind of drunk and shit. And she was like, I was like, "If you've been working," I was like, "Sing something to me in my ear right now." And it's crazy because she actually sung the verse that you hear on that beat. She sung that verse, and I really loved it, man. Like right off top, like, and I mean, this is all the loud music in the club and everything,
Wow.
and
She
yeah, it
sang
was
that
crazy
verse
because
in your ear in the club?
yeah, so and it's crazy. Like everything she sung it the first time, I was like, so my initial thought was like, you didn't write that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like you didn't write that. And I was like, sing it again. And it's like when she started singing, it's like everything just blacked out. I couldn't hear nothing but what she was singing in my ear. And I was like, man, that's dope. I was like, come to the studio tomorrow. And you know, just so happened, man, it was in the same key of that beat that I had just made. And
Man,
we just went to work, and
meant
it's
to
just
be.
crazy, yeah, definitely. Yeah, shout out to the Almighty God, man. Like, things don't happen for no reason, man. Nothing's a coincidence.
Wow, that's incredible. And
yeah,
wow. Yeah, man. And
yeah,
so then Method Man got on that. I mean, like you said, it blew up, and it was crazy. That I mean, I heard
yeah.
Odd Future got on that beat, like that's it really had reach.
I haven't heard that version.
Yeah,
The
man,
f-
yeah. They did it
yeah,
on the I'll send it to you, man. It's crazy. Yeah, Odd
I,
Future got on that. It was on in 2010 they put it out. So it's
oh, that's
it's
crazy.
still going, you know what I mean? It's like one of those records you can play it's a
Yeah,
classic.
it's gotten remixed and sampled a few times. A lot of people, I think Buster put it out. He had something going, and they put it out. like and like a 50 put on the mixtape. It's been a lot. It's been in a lot of hands, man, and a lot of people. And like the version that went number one actually was the remix, and I believe definitely the original would have done better. But if it doesn't matter, I mean, the joint was dope,
Yeah.
but I like the original better. Put it that way. And shout out to Method Man. And to be honest, like that was the one of the first joints that I had made that I didn't have to call anybody to get on. Everybody was calling my phone. And it was like, man, can I do this? Can I do this? Can I do that? I was like, so I had to, weigh my options at the time, and I settled on meth, and that was the right move because, shout out to Kevin Lyles who gave me a record deal, for Jonelle, and you know, unfortunately the album didn't come out, man. Like I said, I think she was so green. It took her so long to make a full album, and shout out to Carvin and Ivan. Shout out to Marsha Ambrosius. Shout out to my homie McKaylee from Chicago, who he's written for Faith Evans, and everybody came through to help me with the project. Raphael Sadiq as well. Raphael came through, produced a couple of joints. Everybody came through, and by the time we had finished, it was like actually 9/11 had happened.
Oh yeah.
The 9/11. It just wasn't. The vibe had changed,
Mm.
and Def Jam was going through their transition. It just changed the whole vibe, and along with her throwing temper tantrums, and you know, just I think she was scared of what she had started. Everybody's not ready for the industry, and she just I think she just wasn't ready. And it took so long to make the album. At the end of the day, that round and round had had that time had passed, so it was time to come with another single, and by that time it was a little too tough for and Def Jam really wasn't with it no more, you know what I mean? So they dropped the project. I still got the album. It was done. it's
Oh, we
it's,
got to
it's a
hear that
dope
one of
album.
these days.
Yeah. 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 And I wasn't on my independent game. I would have just put it out, but it was a lot of money invested into that project.
It's a real shame to hear that but it's a story we've heard before, the fame and the music business is not for everybody. It's a very difficult game to manage, especially for creative
Yeah,
folks, right?
it definitely does, man. Like at the end of the day, I had brought Jonelle and the whole idea of what I wanted to do with that song to Ruckus, and that was
Mm.
like really that song was I wouldn't even say it was like my outro to Ruckus, or my outro, my relationship had diminished with Ruckus. That song was part of the reason because I had brought Jonelle to Ruckus, and they kind of really shitted on her
Damn.
in a meeting that we had, and they just was like it was real disrespectful, and I still believed in the idea, and the crazy part is uh, I had went to during the process of like making it happen, I had went to Cali to work with Snoop for the first time, and I had came back with a record uh, that was supposed to be on the high technology, and basically Ruckus was tripping because nobody could get a verse from Snoop at the time, and they told me it was too big for my album, so I was like, hell no, I'm the one that got it done. You know what I'm saying?
That's
So
crazy.
y'all not y'all not getting this record. So I like left town and everything. And basically they kind of tried to strong on me out the record, which I had to use as leverage to finish the album that I was working on. But, to make a long story short, that was like uh, the fact that they had a meeting and like really disrespected her and disrespected my creative idea, uh, and then for that same record to blow up in their face was it was just a time to show me that I gotta, that I really needed to continue to believe in myself, no matter what nobody say. And I kind of took that to heart, along with them taking my Snoop record. I left Ruckus and didn't turn back. So that's kind of, but the downside to me is once I started working with the majors, it was a different vibe. It was a different vibe. It was like you got to be professional, and you know, I already had the number one record, so there was nothing else for me to do. But when you got majors and you got A&Rs and everybody coming in and jumping on the bandwagon of something that's already rolling,
Yeah.
uh, it'll have you rethinking yourself.
Mm.
And I think that's what that was part of the reason why the record didn't come out as well. Like, I missed the fact that Ruckus was a place where they didn't really hover over you, and it was no A&R, so to say. They were really hip hop lovers. I can't say that they really was true to hip hop and allowed me to do and be who I was from the heart. So,
Man.
uh, yeah, it's some good and bads to that story, but definitely, man. Shout out to Joe Nell. Shout out to Ruckus. Shout out to that moment in time.
Yeah, man. I mean, that Raucous run, dude, is unparalleled. Like, I mean, I got all the sound bombing stuff. It was so many of your beats were the soundtrack to all those Raucous records. You were on so many of those records, and there's very few
Yeah,
producers that I can think have ever had a moment like that. But
yeah. I gotta give a shout out to Ruckus, because if it wasn't for them, it wouldn't be the Hi-Tek you hear today. I don't think, because they encouraged me to express myself through my beats, and allowed me to be myself, without over critiquing. And like next thing you know, I looked up and I got like 3 records on the Rap City countdown,
yeah,
beats I had just made like a couple of weeks prior, and it was just dope to be with somebody like that that just, believed in you. But like I said, but when I needed them,
they weren't
they
there.
they nah, they wasn't there. When it's all good though. Shout out to Brian and Jared, man.
Yeah. Hey, I know your time is really precious, and I just got a couple more questions for you. Now, specifically, um, one of the greatest things that I'm one of my greatest favorite producers, and like most people, is Jay Dilla. And what's really cool about you and Dilla is you're one of the very few people that produce beats for Dilla to rap on the MCA album. And I think you guys obviously had a good relationship because he was also part of the Mood record. He remixed Secrets of Sand, I believe. Can you
Yeah.
just talk about your relationship with Dilla at all? Is that cool?
Yeah. That's cool. I mean, man, shout out to the King Dilla, man. Like, I always felt like he was a few years ahead of me on the beats. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like we cut from the same cloth. You know what I'm
Absolutely.
saying? Midwest. I think our whole thing was we're both students of Pete Rock and students of Q-Tip, students of hip hop in general, and I think our vision and 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 our ear was a lot of the same on a lot of levels. Like I said, I still consider him the king because, you know, I just feel like he was a few years ahead of me. Because it's weird because when me and Qua was like shopping our demo trying to get a deal, we would run into a couple of people and be like, man, Q-Tip got this guy, y'all sound alike, like y'all, and they would all I would hear the comparisons to Dilla all the time, you know what I'm saying? Until I finally found out who he was, you know what I'm saying? But when I looked at the history and I see a lot of stuff that he did that I didn't even know he had done, and at the same time, inspired me for sure. Dilla's like, man, he what he brought to the game was um, he made making beats fun again. When at a time I think it was a little redundant, and he brought something new to the NPC, which I feel like re-inspired me and like helped take it to the next level, so to say. Because I feel like for people who try to do what Dilla did, like you have to know what to do it. You see what I'm saying? And I'm one of those guys that was already doing that, and uh, I always commend Dilla for like just being who he was, man. He lived the music. and I always looked at it like a brother to me. He lived right up the street. He only lived 4 hours away, and we're both from funk towns.
Yeah.
Cincinnati and Detroit. You know what I'm saying? And I always felt like we heard music somewhat of the same. And it's a funny story that a lot of people don't know is I don't know if anybody ever put two and two together, but if you listen to the Mood album, there's a song on there called "Peace on Earth."
Okay.
No, it's called Millennium.
Okay.
It's a joint called Millennium. But during the time when Dilla produced Secrets of the Sand remix, Mood, Jermaine and Dante had went up to Detroit, and it's a funny story because he heard the Millennium joint. And if you listen to the Fantastic Volume 2, he sampled the Millennium joint for Climax.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we got to do some digging post interview here.
Yeah, actually, this is the first time I'm putting this out there for real.
Hey.
But it was, then in them days, you know, it was almost like like it was like he didn't look at it like, oh, he bit my shit, or he took it. I didn't take offense to it at all. I was just like, that's just the way. That's the nature of the game, because he was somebody that had more of a platform than me. I think he looked at Mood like, y'all not doing nothing with this shit. It's too dope.
Yeah, that Mood record's a crazy record, man.
Yeah, but like if you listen to the sample that I chopped the sample, so it's a Tomita record. I chopped that up and put it together. And if you listen to the climax, you'll hear the what's this is which is the main thing you hear on the record, but he sampled it from the Mood album. But
Yeah,
it was like I said, it was like a compliment to me, to be honest.
for real. Yeah.
So from there, I always tell people, a lot of people who don't know that story. So I feel like we inspired each other in a lot of ways. So I was like, yo, it's free game. It's like, I looked at it like, man, we inspiring each other. I never looked at it like, oh, he took my shit, or he took something from me. You know what I mean? It wasn't really like that. That's just the nature of the game. It's happened many a times in hip hop history where, you know, if people beat you to the punch, especially and it takes skill, and it takes skill. It takes skill to know skill.
Hmm.
Sometimes. But yeah, definitely, man. A lot of people don't know that story.
That's awesome, man. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And you know what's cool too? Like after we talked about you talked about the tomato joint. One of my favorite
Yeah.
uses of a tomato sample, "Snowflakes Are Dancing," is one of the tracks off Reflection Eternal record. I'm gapping on. I think it's got Rel on it though. But man,
Oh,
big.
this means you.
Do-do-do-do.
No,
Yeah,
no, not this means you. Uh, too late.
yeah. Too late, yo.
Too late. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
record,
Yeah, too
crazy.
late. Yeah, and shout out to the other producer on the Boo album. Shout out to my man Josh Sun. He was the other producer on the record. He the one. He got me hip to Tamita.
Oh
He was
man.
like always digging in like different records and stuff. But I always felt like I was like, man, that shit is crazy. He would be playing these records, and I definitely was. I was ear hustling. You know what I mean? And I had to take some of them records and start using them the way I heard them. You know what I mean? But definitely, man, like yeah, he definitely put me on to Tomita.
Well, thank you to you, Hi-Tek, because you put me onto Tomita, so I'm very, 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 very appreciative for that. Now,
Yeah, no problem.
and then post round and round, that was you were talking about getting, starting to blow up, being very hot, and then that led a lot to the G Unit connection. You started producing for 50. You produced Rider Music. You produced Best Friend, which was probably my favorite 50 Cent track, and definitely because of the beat. So shout out you. Like, what was that whole like transition from? Because at that time you were primarily known for producing for Rawkus, more underground records, and now you're producing for like big top 40 acts like 50 Cent, Snoop. You produced on the 213 record and things like that.
Yeah.
How was that?
I mean, it was just dope, like to be able to not wouldn't even say transition, because I'm a Midwestern guy. Midwest. I grew up listening to all different types of music, and I think people musically and mutually uh, feel my beats. It's not like, oh, I need to get a beat from Hi-Tek because of the name. It was like they want that music, they want that vibe, and it's a communication between musicians. You know what I mean? I think when they heard my sound and vibration, people was able to be like, if it was they had an opportunity, it was gave me a shot. It gave me an opportunity. So it was definitely a thing. But like if you listen to the high technology, my first album, had it gone according to plan, it would have been a platinum record, with Round and Round, Sun God.
So many joints.
Actually, I wanted to put the Blast remix on the album, but I ran into a wall with that.
Damn.
That's a long story. Uh, I just think it would have been stacked, and I think that would have been my introduction to the mainstream, and so to say, because Round and Round had took off, and that was Cincinnati, that was hometown music, I would say, and to be able to go on to, like I said, I had a song with Snoop on my record, but that, I ran into a wall with that as well. So that didn't make the cut because of political reasons. And but I envisioned all these things, and like I said, had it gone according to plan, that record itself would have been mainstream. But to be able to go on to work with other artists on their projects, and then to be able to go on to work with one of my favorite producers is Dr. Dre. Shout out to
Yep.
Dr. Dre. Dre is, like somebody I've been listening to since I was 7, 8 years old. Actually, one of the first DJs to inspire me to want to DJ as well. Um,
World
I
class
mean,
wrecking
that's
crew.
just it's just a dream come true, to be honest. To be able to communicate with people musically, and then without them even knowing the person. You know what I'm saying? It's like I'm getting calls from everybody, genuine calls, not political calls. Like, yo, I need that. Like, and I was able to hook up with Snoop and Dre on different accords. And they in turn, made me hot on the West Coast. And shout out to everybody on the West Coast that show me love. You know what I'm saying? It's just, you know it's a musical dream, because that's always what I set out to do. I set out to just impact and make people feel good with my music.
Man, I gotta know though, what's coming up for Hi-Tek? Are we getting some more raps from Hi-Tek? Are we getting some more albums? We getting a High Technology 4? Like what's next for Hi-Tek?
I'm just working, man. I really, I'm all over the place, to be honest, man. I'm just getting my beats up, taking care of my health, you know, just investing, just like really put myself in a position to make spending that much time in the studio fun again.
Mm.
And uh you can't just, when you at a certain age, you can't just sit around in the studio without having other sources of income, because at the end of the day, it's not fruitful like it used to be. The days when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, able to just, kick around in the lab, you know what I mean? Then you got big budgets from the record label. You can spend all this time in the studio. So my thing, like, I just been working on life in general. And I think with life comes new music, you know? And that's where I'm at. Like, I'm always working. I live it. You know what I mean? So it doesn't stop, and that's like part of what I was doing with the old beats and putting them out. I felt like they meant so much to me to just let them sit around. So I was like, yo, let me just put shit out. You know what I'm saying? And I'm always working. Trust me, man. It'll never stop. Like, it's just in my blood for sure.
Man, I really appreciate those beat tapes though. I feel like that's such a great way, like an introspective look into like your development and the process, and then also just sharing that history. Like I mean, the way you made those beats, the equipment you're using, it's a real great snapshot of that time. And I think
Yeah.
I saw some people in your chat that was talking about like imagining like what rappers would be rapping on, what you were listening to at the time. It's a really great time capsule of that sound. And some of my favorite things I've listened to are beat tapes. Understand the process of people, getting a Pete Rock beat tape with no rappers on it, or an instrumental record. They just give so much insight, and they're so inspiring as producers, kind of to what you were talking about with Dilla. You hear how people are using sounds. You're getting that kind of like, behind behind the process understanding of how things, and hearing them before a rapper gets on them and maybe takes the attention off the beat. It's so cool. It's really great to
That's
have that.
that's definitely why. That's definitely like why I put it out. The reason I put it out is to, you know, for one, I just, like I said, I didn't want it to sit around, but I just want to show production, and let people and the fans see my growth, and to show the difference between production and beat making, and showing how to leave space for that vocalist, or what I would say, that other instrument, that vocal instrument, to go on the rest, to blend with the rest of the instruments. Like, that's part of the reason why I want to put those joints out. And a lot, it takes everything out of me to put out instrumental projects, to be honest.
I bet.
Because I'm like, yo, man, I'll be getting calls like, man, why the fuck you put that out as an instrumental? You could have gave that to me, you know what I'm saying? And I get it, but I see everybody else doing it. Shout out to my man Alchemist and Madlib, and all the dope cats that I look up to. And I just, you know they would say the same thing to me, but it's a mutual respect, you know what I'm saying? But I see them putting out instrumental projects, and I'm like, man, why not? You know what I'm saying? And I figured I'd play it safe by putting out older beats.
Man, it's great though. Like, there's such a community like now around it. Like yesterday was 404 day. There's like a whole world, just people that just want to listen to beats, and it's really cool. Like the next generation. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
it feels like everyone's got a real appreciation for just that as an art form in itself, and I personally love that, man. And it's great that you're contributing to part of that, because yeah, you've got some of the best beats of all time, and I think everyone in the chat, everyone would agree with that as well. It's
that's dope, man. I appreciate that.
yes. Now
Yeah,
look, I understand your time is very limited. I got one more question,
you got it.
if you don't mind, and that's a question we ask people who come on the show. What does the power of music mean to you?
The power of music. Uh, I mean, I feel like the power of music means, it means everything, man. It's the like the worldwide language. It communicates, like Buster said, on the end of my Music for Life joint, on my second album. He described it, and it's the means to communicate, with everyone. Music is everything. I feel like I communicate through my bass line. When I'm playing that bass, I'm communicating. I'm communicating who I want to work with next. I'm communicating, uh, a love. I'm communicating pain. Communicating my experience and my journey. But the power of music is everything. That's it. What would we do without music?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to know. I couldn't imagine, honestly.
Yes, sir.
But Hi-Tek, before we wrap it up, is there anyone
Yeah.
you want to shout out, or is there anything that you want to shout out? Because man, I just want to say thank you so much for your
Oh,
time.
no problem. No problem, yo. Yeah, I just want to shout out everybody that's listening, man. Everybody that's tuned in. Make sure y'all check out the High Technology Throwback Instrumental Series. Shout out to Serato. Shout out to everybody that's helped me along the way. Helped me get to this point. But definitely, the journey is not over. We just getting started. I just love doing it, man, and definitely appreciate this platform for letting me speak. And like I said, the Serato studio is ill. It's crazy. You
Man, we can
know,
saving that
I'm on it.
soundbite forever, bro.
Wait for that next batch of beats to come out. That Serato.
Absolutely, man. Well, I'll definitely be in touch, man. We gotta let everyone know what you're cooking up. So thank you again
Yes,
for your
sir.
time. And yeah, this will be available for the playback. But I hope you have a fantastic day, Tech, and I look
Thank you,
forward to
man. Thank
speaking
you
to
for having me, man.
Speak to you soon, man.
Appreciate it, Matt.
Peace.
All right, peace.
So there you have it, folks. Man, what a pleasure to speak to such a legend. Like I said, top 5 all time in my opinion, and responsible for so many iconic tracks, soundtrack my life, and I'm sure that you feel the same way. But yeah, go check that out. Go check out his latest beat tapes. There's like 4 of them, all on DSPs. And if you want to follow Tech, he's on Instagram, and I've also put a playlist in the chat. So just type in !follow in the chat, and it'll pull up the playlist and Tech's Instagram. Here, I'll do it for you, just so you got it. But definitely give that guy a follow. He's a legend. We're lucky to have him. And yeah, we'll be back soon in a couple weeks with another guest. But that was the Unscripted Show with Hi-Tek today. Hope you all have a fantastic day. Thank you so much to Low Key for the raid. Thank you to Nina for the modding. And to everyone who tuned in. Much love. Peace, everyone.